Everybody, welcome back to Shock and Schlock. I'm your host, Churchill Gillis, and today is day 11 on day 15 of the 31 Days of Horror. Going to be doing day 12 today as well, so we're getting caught up on reviews. Today is a film that I was a bit apprehensive about because I hated the last attempt at this character, which is Hellboy, the Crooked Man. I hated Hellboy 2019, but I was a huge fan of the Guillermo del Toro films and of the comics, so I went into this with cautious optimism, and I'm happy to say that this film is pretty good. It's not amazing, doesn't hold a candle to the Guillermo del Toro adaptation, but it's most certainly better than 2019. So this one is much closer to the comics in the way that Hellboy is more of a detective, and this story follows Hellboy and this like rookie BRPD agent as they get straight in this 1950s like Appalachian community that's been haunted by witches while they're on a different mission that they get sidetracked from. And when they discover this like family going through this like witchcraft, and they meet this guy with that whatever, and comes back to the titular Crooked Man who has a connection with Hellboy's past. So yeah, pretty basic. If you read the Hellboy comics, this one is very um, like it follows the comics a lot more. It's much more faithful. That's the word I'm looking for. Um, than the 2019 remake of the films. I cannot stress enough how much I dislike that movie, both as a fan of the movies that were different than the comic books. So like they're much more action packed than a lot of the comics, where Hellboy is much more of a detective. This one is less action filled and focuses more on the detective, slower aspect of the comics, which I also appreciate. Um, Jack Kesey is the new Hellboy. I don't think he's as good as Ron Perlman, but I do think he's better than David Harbour, or yeah, I think that's his name, from the 2019 film. I think he does a pretty good job. The actors in general in this are pretty decent. Um, Jack Kesey is, he's good as Hellboy. He's not as physically imposing as Ron Perlman was in the Guillermo del Toro films. And I don't want to compare them, but when it's a franchise like this, you're going to compare. But he does a good job in his role. My primary thing that I really liked about this film, though, was that the atmosphere is great. This is much more of a horror film than any of the previous. It's a slower burn, like witch folk horror movie, and I think that fits the tone of what the Hellboy comics were and are very well. Um, the way the story is presented, I think the visuals in this are great. The witch transformations and everything in this are great. Um, the music and everything fits the tone of this really well. It's very dark and brooding. Cinematography is really good. Really enjoyed that. But there is a backside to the visuals in this, and that is the ungodly CGI that is in this. It has some of the worst CGI I've seen in modern film. And I know the budget of this is significantly smaller than any of the previous Hellboy films, and this released direct to streaming or direct to digital. I did hope that there would be better CGI or less of it, because there are practical effects in this film that are really, really good. And I think, Hellboy himself looks really good, but the CGI in this is unbelievably bad at points. So, it looks like a Sci-Fi Channel movie. And with the budget that this had, it's not huge, but it is big enough that it arguably should not look as bad as it does. I think, and some of the CGI in this is just completely unnecessary as well. Like, we get a scene where a raccoon comes through a window, and the raccoon is CGI, and nothing happens from it. Did we need that? You could have easily, used a real animal or just cut it. It was so unnecessary. So, it's a useless distraction, and there's a part with a snake where the snake looks like a PS1 game. It is very jarring when you're directly comparing that to practical effects that even take place in the same scene. So that is a big complaint about this as well. Something I also didn't care for about the film is that the story seems to be all over the place at times. It's kind of hard to follow a couple of times. I read the comic that this one specifically is based on as well, and if you go in knowing about the series and everything, it makes more sense. But as a casual viewer, I think a lot of people are going to be left with questions. There's a few plot holes in this that really should have been answered more. Those are really my two only major complaints about this. I think the acting is pretty well done. The writing is pretty decent. The plot moves along at a fast pace. The visuals away from the CGI are quite good. And there actually is one CGI part with like a giant bird that I actually thought was really cool. So overall, I think it's a pretty decent little film. It has some major glaring flaws, but it is not to the level of the 2019 film where Hellboy is fighting things set to like some god awful metal. As a metalhead, when I say god awful metal, terrible. Yeah, that's such a bad movie. So I think it's safe to say I can recommend this. I think it's a lot better than a lot of people are giving it credit for. I've seen a lot of people really hate this film, and I've seen a lot of people really love it. I'm sort of kind of in the middle. I give this a 3.5 out of 5. If you're a fan of these Hellboy movies, like prior to this, or the comics, I think you're going to have better, like, you're going to have a better experience with this than non-fans. Non-fans, your mileage may vary. But yeah, I think it's worth a watch. Not one of the better films of 2024, but better than expected. So, yeah, that's it for that review. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't. Keep your notifications on. And as always, 0 thoughts, 0 dings, 0 brain cells, and 0 planning. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.